It is amazing to be with you. I love to shout out to Sir Mark Grundy and some of the students from Shireland in that video. It's amazing to be with all of you again this afternoon, and really, I love the opportunity to be at BET, to get a chance to see some of the challenges and the opportunities that we can solve with not only the innovation that's coming from the halls and the show floor, but the foundation of change that's happening all around us. And certainly we see that change, and we highlighted the trends and technology challenges that are going to be solved by students from your classrooms in the coming years. The immersion of what's happening in mixed reality with augmented reality and virtual reality, and the innovations that are making learning more immersive and connected. The impact and the future impact of quantum computing, and certainly the advancements of artificial intelligence. And I'm actually using artificial intelligence right now that's built into PowerPoint to help us make technology more inclusive, to help us understand language. You see the translation that's happened above me, powered by PowerPoint with the translation service built right in. Using machine learning, it's actually looking at my slides and the materials and the content to get better. But even more, if you go to translate.it, you can actually enter the code CYKPD. You can see it on the top, and join in and see this presentation, or listen to the presentation, or read along in a number of languages, over 60 languages that you can choose. That's the power of AI to break down barriers, to connect us more. And as we see the show floor and all the amazing innovation and technology, the most important thing that we must remember, we must realize, this is about people. The transformation journey that you're on, the schools around the world are on, the countries around the world are on, it's a people transformation. It's about harnessing the energy, the spirit within our students, empowering our leaders and teachers to go beyond. And that's the journey that we must remember. Now, technology, as I'm showing here, has the power to make us more human. We often think about technology as actually distancing ourselves from humanity. But with advancements in technology, we can connect, we can overcome obstacles, we can help students with special needs get access to learning materials, to connect with each other. We've got to embrace the humanity of everything that we do, the preciousness and the sanctity of student data, the ability for students with needs to get personal impact. It starts, though, by something that we don't often measure, we don't often celebrate. I'm not sure if there are any booths about mindset, but by far it's the most important thing that all of you need to do to harness the potential that's possible. Thinking about how do we enable every student to expect more, to dream bigger, to use their talents with purpose to solve real challenges in the world. And when you think about mindset, it's not easy to measure a photograph. You can unleash true talent on the world. And this is really what it's all about. We have talent gaps everywhere, but we know that there's no shortage of talent. It's in our classrooms. It's with our students. And I get a chance to see these students all around the world. I'm lucky I get to travel to your classrooms in countries around the world, and I meet these incredible kids. And as I was preparing for today, I thought, how do I demonstrate the power and the awesomeness of students? And I had a chance to meet a great, amazing 15-year-old student in Canada just a couple of months ago, and I said, as opposed to try to demo or something like that, I'm just going to bring her out. So please join me in welcoming Shagun Mashawari to share a little bit about what she's doing and the power technology can enable with our students around the world.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Anthony for giving me this opportunity to attend and speak at my first ever BET conference, while also talking to you about the exponential technology of artificial intelligence and the impact of this technology to solve one of the world's deadliest disease, cancer. 1 in every 2 people in the United Kingdom are actually expected to develop some form of cancer in their lifetime. That's 33,010,000 people that are expected to develop this deadly disease. Now, what's even more frightening is that 1 in every 4 people in the United Kingdom are actually expected to die of cancer. That's 16,550,000 people expected to die of this disease. That's crazy. But the fatality of cancer isn't new. In fact, cancer has been the second largest cause of death worldwide, almost for a decade. But in recent years, we're seeing a significant change within emerging technology, such as artificial intelligence, to change this statistic. Artificial intelligence is the ability for a computer program and machine to be able to understand and mimic human intelligence. It gives the ability for a computer program and machine to be able to learn, think, make decisions, and solve complex problems almost as efficiently as humans. Artificial intelligence is powering us with the ability to prevent diseases such as cancer, while also giving us the ability to solve this disease and create more efficient treatments to target this disease. One prime example is genome sequencing. Genome sequencing leverages machine learning, which is a subset of artificial intelligence, and leverages machine learning to be able to sequence our whole entire human genome. Now, just to provide some context, our entire human genome is made up of all the genes in our body. And by sequencing our entire genome with machine learning, we're actually able to read the code of our body. Now, this is super important because by reading the code of our body, we're able to gain insights into illnesses and diseases that us as an individual is most prone to. This is extremely beneficial because before a disease has developed in us, we're actually able to predict if we have a likelihood of developing that disease. Now, I was super inspired by this, and I wanted to myself leverage artificial intelligence and create my own AI model to create a significant change to the humongous problems in our world. So I created an AI model to be able to identify the genes in our body that, when activated, cause cancerous tumors. And I did this by using an AI model called a variational autoencoder. So one key functionality of a variational autoencoder is its ability to be able to identify patterns within its data. So every AI model is trained on a data set. But the variational autoencoder is actually able to identify patterns within its data. And that gives it its functionality to be able to identify the genes in our body that, when activated, cause cancerous tumors. So to give a more intuitive example of what exactly a variational autoencoder is, we can look at a simple example of a variational autoencoder trained on multiple images of people's faces. So as you can see, this variational autoencoder is actually able to identify patterns such as smile, skin tone, gender, if the person has a beard or not, if the person has glasses, within the data set of different people's faces. And from these patterns, the variational autoencoder is actually able to construct features, which is amazing. But now, to actually apply this to what I wanted to solve, in order to identify the genes in our body that, when activated, cause these cancerous tumors, we have to replace the data set of multiple images of people's faces with the data set of 5,000 genes and a measurement of how active each gene is. So each gene in this data set comes from a cancerous tumor. So what this means is if a gene from a cancerous tumor is highly active, then that gene is most at risk at causing the cancerous tumor in the first place. So now I wanted to see if my variational autoencoder was able to efficiently identify patterns within the data set of 5,000 genes and a measurement of how active each gene is. And it was. So my variational autoencoder was able to identify patterns of patient sex in my data set. So it was able to see which genes in the 5,000 genes was related to patient sex, and it was able to construct a feature out of it, as you can see in the middle. It was also able to differentiate the genes from primary and metastatic skin cancerous tumors. So just to give a little context, primary is not that cancerous, while metastatic is extremely cancerous. And the variational autoencoder was actually able to tell the difference between the genes from primary and metastatic tumors and construct features out of it. Now, the implication of this is that the AI model was able to identify patterns within the data, it was able to create features, but it was also able to identify which genes in each feature had a high risk of causing the tumor in the first place. So for example, in feature 66, which featured the metastatic skin cancer tumors, the variational autoencoder was able to see which genes were at the highest risk, which means that they have the highest measurement of being active that caused these cancerous tumors in the first place. Now, the implication of this is huge because doctors, pharmaceutical scientists are actually able to design drugs specifically catered to what this AI model outputs and what this AI model says which genes are the most risk at causing cancerous tumors. So this is huge because now we are one step closer to precision medicine, of personalized medicine, more efficient medicine, and specific medicine. This is just one aspect of AI completely revolutionizing an industry such as healthcare. There's millions other possibilities, and this is just one industry. AI has the potential to significantly improve positively a number of different industries, and I am personally extremely excited about this. Thank you.
Wow. So Shagun, you've been researching this for about a decade or so?
No, 3 or 4 months.
And one of the things I want to underscore to the audience, tell me a little bit of some of the projects your friends are working on.
Yeah, so I have a number of different friends who are working on equally as amazing projects. One friend, his name is Sabrish, he is actually working with Microsoft, and he's sponsored by Microsoft. He's developing his very own augmented reality app that allows for wayfinding indoors. My other friend, Ananya, she's working with brain-machine interfaces, and she was actually able to control a robotic car with her brainwaves.
That's pretty cool. Now, I'm curious about your mindset on this shift. What's happened? What's changed in you since you started working with these types of tools?
I think the biggest thing is that I no longer think age is a barrier. So before, I thought I was very limited to the classroom or the material that was given to me. But now I know that I can do anything in life because I have the confidence in myself and I have the mindset that I can solve extremely hard problems. And that comes from solving extremely hard problems.
It is amazing to see what you're doing, and I have to say, the world is a better place to having students like you solving these tough challenges. Now, cancer is a big one. What made you decide to choose it?
So I've been working on artificial intelligence for 3 or 4 months, building my skills in the math. I've been learning how to program AI models, but I really wanted to apply my knowledge to something bigger because I believe that I've been so fortunate to grow up in a good family, in a developed country, that I have to use my skills, the tools I've been given, the technology, to impact something big. So that's why I chose cancer.
Well, thank you very much for the work that you're doing. I think all of us should thank Shagun for the work, and thanks for joining us here. Thank you very much for your part.
Thank you.
It is incredible to see the kind of talent, the opportunity, the passion that we can unleash in our students. We spend a lot of time talking about what technology is going to do in our schools, in our classrooms. We should spend more time on what technology is going to enable inside the kids to do stuff for the world. And that starts with understanding a foundation of unleashing and embracing the reality of social and emotional learning. This is something that we've been really thinking about hard at Microsoft. And to join me in welcoming Barbara Hosafa, who will share a little bit more about the work and the research we're doing to unleash the power of social and emotional learning.
Good afternoon, and first of all, thank you, Anthony, for that generous introduction. And can we all thank Shagun again? I think her amazing work is just so inspiring. But so is her passion and her confidence to join us here today and share her work with thousands of strangers. At Microsoft, we believe that all students have the potential to learn and grow in amazing ways. That's why we're very passionate about supporting educators from around the globe to help students develop the skills that they will need to solve the problems that actually inspire them. Last year at BET, I shared the results from work we had done around the class of 2030, where we wanted to better understand the kind of skills that today's kindergartners will need when they graduate to thrive in work and in life. And what we found were two core themes. The first one was around the importance of student-centric approaches, such as personalized learning. The second one was about the growing importance of social and emotional skills. Now, social and emotional skills are critical for overall well-being, which in turn is a key predictor of academic and employment success. So we decided to dig deeper to better understand how educators and schools are helping the students to build those social emotional skills that will enhance their well-being and the role that technology can play in that. So we conducted an additional piece of research in partnership with the Economist Intelligence Unit. Building on the work we had done around the class of 2030, the EIU surveyed more than 760 educators from around the globe, covering 15 countries, including 5 in Europe: Sweden, France, the Netherlands, Germany, and the UK. So from Mexico to Sweden and from Indonesia to Canada, we set out to listen to the voices of educators. In addition to that, we conducted a set of interviews with experts on the topic of well-being and reviewed about 90 pieces of existing research. So why is this issue so important? Emotions are the gatekeepers to cognition. And we can all relate to that intuitively. We all know that we cannot pay attention or think clearly or creatively when our emotions and our lives are in turmoil. And the same applies to students and their learning. Building social and emotional skills, such as self-awareness, self-regulation, and empathy, are very important to help us better understand our own emotions so we can all do our best work. Unfortunately, student health is suffering at an alarming rate, which has long-term and broad implications, not just for our families and communities, but for societies and economies at large. Since 2012, depression has been the #1 cause for disability worldwide. In the United States, diagnosis of depression among teens aged 12 to 17 is growing faster than for any other age group. How students feel directly impacts their performance, their prospects, and their overall potential. And this is particularly critical as this generation of students consumes, processes, and generates more information than any other generation before. So making sure that they have the social and emotional skills that are critical for them to be able to avoid cognitive overload, to separate the signal from the noise and the facts from the fiction, is more important than ever before. And each of these trends underline the importance of helping students develop and build the social and emotional skills that will enhance their overall well-being. So let's take a look at what we found in our survey. So first of all, across the globe, educators deeply understand and appreciate the importance of well-being for their students' education. According to our survey, 80% of the respondents believe that student well-being is critical for overall academic success, for building the foundational literacies, as well as for building strong communication skills. We also found that about 70% of the respondents said that the importance of well-being has increased significantly, especially for K-12 education, since they started their careers. At the same time, we also found that school systems have not moved as quickly as the educators have in prioritizing student well-being. Only 53% of our respondents said that their school has a formal plan or policy or program in place around student well-being. So individual educators can do a lot in their own classrooms, but to impact student well-being at a broader scale, more systemic approaches are needed. When we looked at the data from a geographical perspective, we saw strong interest and strong commitment from the educators around student well-being. For example, in Asia, we heard that 67% of the educators are being encouraged to include emotional literacy in their classrooms. In North America, 66% of the respondents said that they are incorporating emotional literacy approaches into their classrooms. But when we got to Latin America, we found some really interesting trends. The Latin American countries are actually leading the way in approaches around student well-being, with more teachers fully engaged and incorporating emotional literacy into the classrooms. We also heard from them that 65% of them believe that student well-being is critical for raising healthy adults and responsible citizens, compared to 39% of those responses in Europe. Since 2012, Latin America has also been the region that has seen the greatest progress in academic outcomes as measured by the PISA results. So this was a really interesting and intriguing intersection between a region focusing on student well-being on the one side and seeing great progress in academic achievement. So this is an area where we think there's more investigation necessary to see if there's any correlation on that. One thing that came through very clearly in the research was that well-being is a shared responsibility. The school, the communities, the homes all play a really important role. And to maximize student well-being, we need to ensure that there are positive learning experiences, social learning experiences, cognitive learning experiences, as well as emotional learning experiences. In the classroom, this means providing the students with social learning opportunities in or outside the community, chances to overcome challenges and have that sense of achievement when we cross that line and can do something we haven't been able to do before, as well as building that strong sense of community and belonging. Outside the classroom, what we found is that stable relationships, enriching extracurricular activities, as well as a supportive home environment play a critical role. Educators in schools can do a lot to help the students with their well-being, but we also have to keep in mind that they cannot do it alone. We also heard that about roughly a quarter of the respondents in our survey indicated that their students are enjoying an above-average level of well-being. So we were curious about what these leader schools are doing, what they have in common, and what we can learn from it. By a margin of about 60 to 40%, we found that these leader schools were more likely to have a formal plan in place around student well-being. They were also more likely to measure and monitor the students' well-being in addition to their academic success. They were also more likely to include approaches and foster approaches around inclusive classrooms that really help amplify the student voice. They were also more likely to engage with the community in a really purposeful way. And finally, to take a whole school approach to professional development. Now, while all of that is great progress, we also heard from the educators that there are some common barriers that they encountered in supporting student well-being. 64% of the respondents said that they lack time and resources to help the students in their well-being. 71% of the respondents also said that changes to affect student well-being on a broader scale need to be taken by the school leadership. So this feedback all reinforces that more systemic approaches are needed to boost the work that the educators are doing and the teachers are doing in the classroom every day. And this was a very consistent message between the survey, the expert interviews, as well as the literature review. Now, in all of this, technology plays a very critical role. So we asked the educators in our survey about which technologies are most beneficial to them. And what we heard is that immersive learning experiences, especially learning experience that allow the students to explore something from the perspective of another person, hold a lot of promise to help develop those social emotional skills, especially when we think about empathy. We also heard that collaboration tools that help the students work together, solve problems together, and communicate with each other are rated very highly, as well as technologies that help collect and analyze data and information about the students' well-being and their emotional states. Now, these insights, we found them very consistent and compelling. Now, the next question is all around how do these findings align with pedagogical theory, as well as how they're being put into action. And here with us today to explore this question is Dr. Mark Brackett, who is the founder of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. He has developed an approach to help students develop social emotional skills that is being used by more than 2,500 schools around the globe. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Mark Brackett.
So I guess my job is to ask everybody how you're feeling. That was a joke, by the way. Well, actually not a joke. So this is a tool that we developed to help make social and emotional learning real. On the x-axis right here, you see the word pleasantness. I'm going to ask all of you right now to take a moment. You've been here at a conference all day. What is your level of pleasantness? -5. In your head, you're saying something like, I can't wait to get out of here. +5, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I could stay here for another 6 hours. So please, where is your level of pleasantness right now? -5 to +5. On the y-axis, it says the word energy. Literally your level of physical energy activity. +5, you can't contain yourself. -5, you're in your deepest pool of despair. Where is your energy at? And of course, we just cross our two axes to create our mood meter. We got yellow, red, blue, and green. So raise your hand if you're in the yellow. High energy and pleasant. All right, we're in England, obviously. Not very many people. How many of you are in the green? You're pleasant, but you're kind of low in energy. Okay, I got a lot of green. Any blue or red? Okay, so we're in a room of a couple, maybe 300 or 400 people, and about 10 people raise their hands to say they're feeling unpleasant. Is that real? I mean, think about it. Does that really kind of have meaning? And what my research shows is that actually we're in a very different emotional place. So let's take a look at some data. When we looked at students' emotional lives, we call it the emotional roller coaster, we studied high school students across the United States. In a study in collaboration with the pop singer Lady Gaga and her foundation, we surveyed 45,000 students across America. Public school, private school, rich schools, poor schools. And here's what the data showed. The top emotions that our nation's high school students are experiencing are tired, bored, and stressed. As a matter of fact, 77% of the feelings they report having each day are what you might call negative emotions. Now, I also ask you, do you think that's real? No, it's not real. It is real. So when people challenged us on this research, what we did was a more advanced study. It's called experience sampling. What we did was we took a couple thousand students and we gave them little smart devices and we tracked them 5 times a day for 5 weeks, 125 moments of how they felt each day in school. What do you think we found? Tired, bored, and stressed around 70% of the time. How many of you feel like tired, bored, and stressed is a recipe for innovation, creativity? So we said, all right, enough with the students. Let's go to the teachers. Let's see how they're doing. Amazingly well. The number one emotion that our nation's teachers is feeling is frustration. Any educators in the room? Does that resonate with anybody? Top emotion experienced by an American teacher, frustration. We went a little deeper with this and we said, well, what's the cause of your frustration? And what we found was, very interestingly, the single biggest cause of a teacher's unpleasant emotions was the climate of their school, the quality of the relationships between and among the teachers and the students. And lo and behold, what we also found was that the outcome of their negative emotions were things like depression, anxiety. We actually found in our study that teachers who come from a more negative school, who experience more negative emotions, are overweight. They have higher BMIs, because we actually study teachers' body mass indexes. And they take more sick days. So what we've learned over our 20 years of doing research is emotions matter for 5 big reasons. The first is attention, memory, and learning. So I asked you how you felt for a reason, because I know that if you're bored, which if you are, I'm like insulted, just so you know, your brain is not here. Emotions drive our attentional capacity. It's been proven. As a kid, I was a C&D student. I hated school. I was bullied horrifically. I really just had a terrible time and literally was a failing student. And I know some of you are looking at me like, how is that possible? Because the truth is, I am really freaking smart. However, my emotion system had complete control over my cognitive system because I was worrying about, am I going to get home safely? Am I going to get from class A to class B without getting beaten up? And when your brain is preoccupied with survival, it's not available for learning. That's been proven through now very advanced brain research. The second is decision making. Has anyone here ever made a poor choice? So we know that how we feel influences our decisions. Quick study. We took teachers. We randomly assigned them to be in 2 conditions: good mood, bad mood. Think about a good day, bad day, good day, bad day, good day, bad day. And then we had them read the same essay and grade it. Lo and behold, what we found was 1 to 2 full grades difference in the way the teachers evaluated the essay. So there you go. Mood, emotion, influencing cognition, and now resulting in student performance. The most interesting thing about that research was at the end of the study, we asked the teachers, do you believe that how you felt had any influence over the way you graded the paper? What do you think? 90% said no. I grade papers all the time. Why would my feelings influence how I evaluate? Well, lo and behold, what that tells us is that how we feel influences our decisions, and that happens mostly outside of conscious awareness, which brings up really interesting professional development. The third is relationship quality. Raise your hand if you work with someone who is difficult.
Welcome.
Alrighty. Can you hear? Can you hear me all right? All right, so now you should be, as Mark said, how am I feeling? All right, can you hear? Oh, it's loud. Can you hear me all right? Can we fix that? All right. So let me take, there we go. It's a good thing I got training in emotional intelligence. So I asked you a minute ago. Thank you. So I ask you right now, something I completely forgot I was going to ask you. Relationship quality. Let me ask you that quick question. Raise your hand again if you work with someone who's difficult. All right, we're back to on track. So think about that. Emotions are signals. They are signals to approach or avoid. Just take a moment and think about that. If you were someone like an educator who walks around, unfortunately, with a facial expression like this, how many of you, when you see that facial expression, say something like, I want to work with that person for the rest of my life? No. Negative emotional expressions say, stay away. The fourth is physical and mental health. Here's what we know. At least in the state that I live in America called Connecticut, we've studied 12 universities. Every year, think about this, every year for the last 6 years, there has been a 20% increase in students seeking mental health treatment. Every year for the last 6 years, a 20% increase. In America alone, the suicide rates, unfortunately, have gone up by 25% in the last 2 decades. Finally, performance. Raise your hand if you've ever tried to be creative. Raise your hand if you've ever failed. Raise your hand if you've ever gotten really harsh feedback. All right. Raise your hand if you've ever been disappointed with an outcome. So what we know from our research is that the high school students who have the emotion regulation strategy to support them in dealing with the full range of emotions are the ones who actually achieve. So that leaves us to an interesting question. As you can see here, it appears that we're quite emotionally out of whack. If you go back to our mood meter, you see that about 70% of the emotions our nation is feeling are on that left side. The question is, how do we get more of those pleasant emotions? Recognizing that the goal is not always to be happy. Take me, for example. I'm a neurotic Jewish professor. I will never be happy. I'm striving for contentment. But if the goal that I had, like I've heard in, unfortunately, some classrooms, come on, we gotta be happy, we gotta be happy, you may be doomed to actually be more depressed if you're pushed to be happy. So that means we need some skills. And there are 5 skills that we have studied in our center for the last 25 years. We call them the ruler skills. The first is recognition of emotion. Being aware, perceptive emotion, face, body, voice. The second is understanding where those feelings come from. Do I know why I feel angry or disappointed or frustrated or overwhelmed or anxious? What's the difference between feeling pressured versus stressed? What's the difference between feeling jealous versus envious? The third is having that language. Am I down, disappointed, devastated, or hopeless or despaired? Am I happy, elated, jubilant, or just content or tranquil or peaceful? The fourth is expressing emotions, knowing how and when to express emotions. There are rules around that, aren't there? There are cultural rules. I'm in England. I've gotten the opportunity to work in schools here. And this, I hope this, please do not take this in a negative way. About 5 years ago, I was visiting a school somewhere around here, and it was at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm doing my presentation, and this teacher stands up. As soon as I show her the mood meter, she looks at me and she goes, "My job is not to talk to my students about my feelings." So I have some facilitation skills. So I said, does anybody have a different feeling? And this one high school teacher stood up, this guy, he looked like a cricket player, and he was actually. And he goes, "Sir, I have got a different opinion." And I was like, "Great. share it. He goes, well, before I share my opinion, I just want to let you know that I actually was a student in this school, and she was my teacher. It was an interesting morning. And I bring that up because the last skill, which is the toughest of them all, is emotion regulation. Raise your hand if you've ever had difficulty regulating an emotion. Raise your hand if you think you might be a little healthier or happier if you were more skilled in that area. Raise your hand if you think you might be a little healthier or happier if everybody who you lived and worked with were more skilled in that area. Yeah. We all want everyone else to do the hard work. So here's what we know, that among youth, those with more developed emotion skills look like the bottom. They have greater empathy, greater well-being, all the outcomes that we care about. What we know from 20 years of research is that those with lower emotional intelligence look like the columns on top. When we go into our teachers, we know the same thing. Teachers with more developed emotion skills, they're more sensitive, they create more positive classroom climates, they're less stressed, they're less burnt out. In my opinion, we have an equity issue, not only in terms of race and poverty, but we have an equity issue in education with educators. Educators who are stressed and burnt out are not giving the best possible education possible to their students. So, very briefly, I've had the privilege over the last many years of my life to develop an approach. We call it Ruler, and in England they call it Rula. And our goal is to move from piecemeal models. I started my career only wanting to work with kids, and I developed a middle school program, and we failed. We failed because the adults who were teaching kids they had that attitude. Like, my job is not to talk to my students about my feelings. I'm not going to talk about negative emotions. I'll do joy and jolly. I'm like, 77% of the feelings are negative. We're not going to talk about them? No. We're just going to let them go. So, but that's going to drive their learning. And then I worked with school leaders, and they said, well, thank you for coming. And they'd leave the room. And I'm like, wait a minute. What about you? You got to learn this stuff. And then we had opportunities to work in big systems, and we found that we needed to think systemically. So in my last minute with all of you, I'm just going to share with you a few things we've done. One, we say there's too many rules, not enough feelings. Instead of having rules, why don't we just ask people how they want to feel and create learning environments where we strive for the feelings that students and leaders and teachers want to feel. So you can now develop that vocabulary and think about how specifically you feel, because we know if you name it, you can tame it. We also developed many interesting ways. One of the things that we built was a tool we call the Mood Meter app, which helps you plot your feelings. So technology can help you create more meaning by looking at the frequencies of your emotions over time of day of week. And what we found in schools that adopt this approach is that pretty good things happen. We have students who do better, we have teachers who are healthier and happier, we have less bullying, we have more positive climates. We even show that there is a cost-benefit analysis to doing this work. And lastly, what I want to urge us all to do is think systemically. Raise your hand if you believe that emotions matter. Raise your hand if you think that these skills are real skills, not really just soft skills. I'll tell you right now, it's never too early or too late to develop these skills. The areas of your brain responsible for learning these skills are with you now and to your last days. I'll tell you there are systemic and really creative ways of doing that. Ours is one approach. I'm sure many of you are doing other approaches. And lastly, what I want to say is that maybe, just maybe, if we start taking this side of the report card seriously, we will have a generation of youth who not only is academically successful, but achieves their dreams. So on that last note, I want to bring back my friend Barbara, who is going to end our time together. Thank you so much.
I don't think I need this one. I hope so. Well, first of all, thank you, Mark, for those fantastic insights. How are you guys feeling? Excited? Awesome. All right, that's good. As we heard throughout the session today, we sit at this amazing crossroads where the complexity of the world's problems keep increasing, but at the same time, the ability of technologies such as AI is increasing in the same way to help solve and address those issues. Now, artificial intelligence alone will never be enough. To really unleash the power of technologies such as AI, we need to apply our uniquely human emotional intelligence just like Shagun has done in her efforts to find new ways to help fight against cancer. Now, when the best of technology and the best of humanity come together, when AI and EI really converge, that's when breakthroughs can happen. We are all very excited to be on this journey together with all of you, to learn from you and to contribute our insights and technologies so that together we can empower every student on the planet to achieve more. Thank you very much.